Ladies and gentlemen, over the past month or so, we have been diving into the Black Ops universe, specifically looking at a couple of different mysteries, starting off with Viktor Reznov. Is he still alive or is he dead? And then we dove into Alex Mason, specifically looking at whether or not he killed JFK. Well, today we're going to be continuing something that I actually started 2 years ago, answering the question, how did Frank Woods get captured? You know, that shipping container that he was found in by Alex Mason? Well, why was he in there? How was he in there? How was he still alive? And guess what? There's another big twist that didn't come until Black Ops 4. Today, we're going to be answering all of those questions and many, many more, diving into the Frank Woods timeline. But on top of that, looking at some real world events that explain some issues as well. It's a very interesting one. It's very in-depth. And if you enjoy these Black Ops mysteries, the best way to show me is by hitting that like button, because the more likes this video gets, the more likely I am to continue on the series. And believe it or not, there's many, many more Black Ops mysteries. So that is what we're going to be diving into today, specifically looking at the capture of Frank Woods. But before we do, let me tell you about today's video sponsor. So today's video is sponsored by PrizePicks. And if you don't know what PrizePicks is, essentially it's the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. But unlike other fantasy sports, you're not playing against another person. It is simply you against the numbers. Let me show you what I mean. So this is PrizePicks, and essentially you can choose from any sports, but I feel like since the Super Bowl is coming up, this is an easy one. Well, so you can go to your favorite players and say you want to watch Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. There is one going on right now where you can pick more or less than 0.5 passing yards. And I feel like this is an easy one. But what's cool about PrizePicks is it's not just one individual sport. We can go into NBA and put this into your fantasy as well. So for example, in LeBron James' next game, you can pick more or less than 24.5 points. But the other cool thing about PrizePicks is it's not just the big four sports. There's also esports, including Call of Duty League. So if you watch Call of Duty League, you can play some fantasy Call of Duty, essentially picking your favorite players and whether they're going to get more or less kills on given maps. So this is really fun, and if you want to check out PrizePicks, it is the first link down below, and if you use coupon code InkSlasher, they're actually going to match your first deposit up to $100. So with the Super Bowl and Call of Duty events nearly every single weekend, it is a great time to check out PrizePicks, and thank you PrizePicks for sponsoring the video. February 19th, 1968. Our characters, including Frank Woods and Alex Mason, are in Hanoi. Specifically, they are being held captive. They are there to track down, find, and kill Lev Kravchenko. Now, eventually, as we know, they do escape captivity, but eventually they run into Lev Kravchenko. He is essentially beating on Alex Mason when Frank Woods comes to his rescue. He stabs him in the side and jumps out the window. And essentially, we see an explosion, and after this time period, Frank Woods has gone missing. Keep in mind, this mission took place in the year 1968. So this is where the mystery begins, because when we get a description as to what happened after, it is given in the game Black Ops 2 by old man Frank Woods. And this is what he had to say.
I was MIA and but your old man thought I was dead. After all that shit Kravchenko did to him. The numbers, Reznov ain't stuck in his head. He had no idea it was real. How the fuck could he? Kravchenko, when I sliced that bastard open, saved everyone's ass. But he comes to first. Boom. Welcome to the Hanoi Hilton. 6 months later, they shipped me over to Da Nang. And this fucking place made the Hilton look good. Lost 17 of my group. By 72, it was just me. I was not gonna die in a fucking swamp.
So essentially what happened is after saving Alex Mason, the explosion goes off and neither Lev Kravchenko or Woods were killed by the explosion. But Lev Kravchenko wakes up first and drags Frank Woods off to the Hanoi Hilton. In other words, in Hanoi. He is then there for about 3.5 years. And halfway through 71, he is then transferred to Da Nang, which he said is horrible. At this time, he was the sole survivor. He was the only one out of his crew to survive. And eventually, after 6 months, he manages to escape and is saved in the year 1972. So essentially, from the year 1968 to 1972, Frank Woods was a 4-year POW. So just for location-wise, he was captured and brought to the Hanoi Hilton, but he was captured somewhere in Laos in a waterway at some point. Now, he spent essentially 3 years in the Hanoi Hilton before he was transferred south to Da Nang. He was here for 6 months, and that's where he managed to mount his escape. Now, to be clear, this is not where he was held captive within that shipping container. That doesn't happen until the year 1986. So we still have quite a ways to go. In fact, 14 years. And also, that part where he's in the shipping container takes place in Angola. So between the years 1972 and 1981, there is a big blank space where we don't quite know what happens. But in the year 1981, that is where the Black Ops Cold War campaign actually picks up. So all of those events during Black Ops Cold War take place in the early 1980s, essentially spanning from 81 to 82. And then as we go into the multiplayer, we get into the year 1984. In fact, in the Season 2 trailer, we actually see Frank Woods go back to Laos, the same location where Alex Mason and Frank Woods were originally captured. But again, this is not Angola. The Black Ops Cold War story ends in the year 1984, and then we have 2 years before Frank Woods is captured. So what exactly happens here? Well, in the first mission that Alex Mason is sent on in Black Ops 2, we see him alongside someone by the name of Jonas Savimbi. He is an Angolan politician, he was in the war, and we find out he knows the location of Frank Woods. And this is what he has to say about it.
Many men today, huh? Yes! We all did!
Where's Woods?
The MPLA is not yet defeated. That's a very dangerous rescue, my friend.
Where is he?
He's being held captive by a Nicaraguan gun runner. A very dangerous man.
Where?
About 2 miles north. He's on a transport barge on the Cubango River. He may already be dead.
Let's go, Hudson!
So Frank Woods is being held captive on the Cubango River, which is in South Angola. You can see it kind of here in the picture. He is towards the south side of Angola. And we also found out he's being held by a Nicaraguan gun runner. We know this person. The Nicaraguan gun runner in question is none other than Raul Menendez. So we know who captured him. But why? So a couple years ago, I actually got to interview James C. Burns, the voice actor for Frank Woods in Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2, and this is the question that he asked me.
Who are the other people in the shipping container?
Well, I say, solid question, Frank Woods. Let's figure that out. And to do so, we kind of have to look at the history as to what was going on during Angola in the year 1986. And to do that, we actually have to look at some real-world events, because if you didn't know, all of Black Ops is a fictional universe created around real-world events, whether that be JFK or Ronald Reagan, as we're going to find out. So the question is, what was going on with Angola in 1986? This is where I'm going to go to my past self, 2 years ago, Ink Slasher, to explain it to you. So if I sound a little bit weird here, that's why.
You see, on the 2nd of June, 1985, there was a civil war going on in Angola, and a bunch of people decided to sit down and try to come to a conclusion. Some of those people included Savimbi, the character that we talked about earlier, and on top of that, the Nicaraguan Contras. Now, why they were involved in this war is really confusing. We're not going to dive into that. There's a whole other story behind that. But under the table, the Reagan administration also listened to the dealings as well, even though it wasn't publicly stated. And at the end of this meeting, they decided to come to a peaceful end to this civil war. However, just 9 days later, the United States House of Representatives voted to repeal the Clark Amendment, which is the thing that kind of solved the problem in Angola. And with this, the fighting in Angola intensified. The MPLA started many more attacks, and more people got involved, like Cuba and Nicaragua. The Nicaraguan Contras siding with the MPLA. And can you guess what year this happens? In 1986. The same year Frank Woods was captured. So because of this, the war intensifies and the United States decides to send in more soldiers. And in the Black Ops story, one of those soldiers is none other than Frank Woods. So Ronald Reagan sends in some CIA assets, including Frank Woods, and they get captured.
All right, thank you, Past Ink Slasher. So essentially, Ray Gun sends in American soldiers, which include Frank Woods, the CIA asset. He gets captured, and that is what is going on here. The question is, why is he captured by Raul Menendez? Well, believe it or not, this is answered by the game Black Ops Declassified, because during this game, there's a mission where the US sanctions an assassination attempt on the leader of the Menendez drug cartel, Raul's father, Jose Luis Menendez. When he is taken out, Raul manages to escape on the back of a pickup truck. So, during the mid-1980s, Raul Menendez is trying to build back up the Menendez drug cartel. And the way of doing this is selling weapons. He is a weapons runner for both the MPLA and the Soviet-backed government. And as we find out during Black Ops Cold War, you actually go on one of the maps and you can see a note about Raul Menendez directed towards Stitch, which also means Raul Menendez is also working with Perseus. So why the shipping container full of American soldiers? The answer to that question is because Raul Menendez is making his money off of running weapons, and the best way to cause war is to take American soldiers hostage. Because as we know, based off the real world, when American soldiers are held hostage, America goes hard. And because America goes hard, that means war, which means Raul Menendez gets rich. So, without this war in Angola, the rest of the Menendez cartel may have never happened, and the events in the future in Black Ops 2 may have never happened as well. So we know why, we know how, and we know when Frank Woods was captured. But, as I mentioned, there's one more twist, courtesy of Black Ops 4.
Thanks. Angola. Sorry, kid. No. It's you in the box. It's always been you.
So, what if the roles were reversed? What if it was actually Alex Mason in that box the entire time? How would that work? How would that make any sense? Well, as I mentioned at the beginning, if you want the Black Ops mysteries to continue, let me know down in the comments. Hit that like button, subscribe, turn notifications on. And until the next mystery, peace.
We are reaching for the stars.